find the guilty is to exonerate the innocent. And those you can't exonerate are the guilty. So if not this, then what? Another guy, Robert Bigelow. Name sound familiar? No, he's not a tea guy. He's a billionaire, though. And he purchased an area near Ballard, Utah, known as the Skinwalker Ranch. The Skinwalker Ranch was an area in Utah with tons of paranormal, tons of UFO experiences, stuff that went on from back in the Navajo days, okay? Everybody knew the area was haunted, if nothing else. Shape-shifting creatures, UFOs coming out of the hills, ghosts that walked in the desert. And Robert Bigelow bought this place for $200,000, okay? Made documentaries, hired people to run it. They made a movie about it. George Knapp, the reporter from Las Vegas television station, and he also does the weekends on Coast to Coast. He was involved with the Skinwalker Ranch and Robert Bigelow. He founded hundreds of millions of dollars towards research for UFOs. His own money, okay? Then he got tired of it, got out of it, sold the Skinwalker Ranch for $4.5 million to the holdings company, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but it's called Adamantium Holdings, okay? It's a shell company. They bought it for $4.5 million. Bigelow bought it for $200,000. If it's really just worthless desert, then why do these people pay $4.5 million for it? Oh, and by the way, all roads to the ranch, each and every one of them, have been blocked off. The perimeter has been secured by cameras and barbed wire. If this ranch was a farce, a fraud, if there's nothing going on with this place, why did these people buy it for $4.5 million? Okay, maybe you buy it and you turn it into an amusement park, or you turn it into a hotel that people come and pretend like they experience stuff, okay? I would get that. But why would you pay $4.5 million for it and then cordon it off to the public and allow no one to get anywhere near it? Why? Why would someone do that? Again, that's the strangest thing about this whole UFO phenomenon thing. Okay, it's not little green men from Mars. Then why does the government cover it up? Like Skinwalker Ranch. Why would a billionaire like Bigelow want to be involved with it for so many years? I understand why he got out of it. He was done. But then why did somebody else buy it for $4.5 million and then cordon it off to the public? Why would they do that? I don't have the answers to any of those questions. But it's something that I think is worth asking the question about anyway. Now, getting back to a statement that I may have made early on in the podcast, and all you folks said, whoa, wait a minute, Strong. You can't leave that one alone, where I mentioned I had my own UFO experience. Yeah, I do believe UFOs are real, and I believe UFOs are real because I've seen one. Now, do I know that Bigfoot is for real? I don't know. Never seen one, okay? But I do know UFOs are real because I've seen one in the desert, in the sky, flying. Number 3 son was with me. He saw it too. And it was definitely something that was flying. It was an object, and I have no idea what it was. It was above the mountains, and in fact, over what was probably close to the China Lake Naval Weapons Base, okay, in the California desert, Southern California desert, in the middle of nowhere, close to Death Valley, okay. Maybe just, what would that be? Maybe a little north of Death Valley, north and west of Death Valley is where I saw this UFO. And we saw it for quite some time. They were blinking lights, but this craft would stay hovered, but then it would jump up, then go down, then go right, then go left, back and forth, not like a helicopter, because it would be quick, jerky movements that were so quick that it would take a man, if a man were in that spacecraft, the G-force was so great, it'd probably rip them apart. I saw this with my own eyes, okay? And it wasn't just something we saw and then didn't see again. This went on for, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And then it just zoomed away. So we thought, maybe it was a star. Maybe it was, we'll look for it the next night. Well, the next night, the sky was clear again, and there was nothing. Nothing was there. It wasn't a star. It was something else. I don't know what, but it was something else. And if you've seen something like that you can't explain, you have to ask the question. I don't know what that is. So what could it have been? I don't know. You don't know. There's an explanation. It could well have been some type of experimental aircraft from the China Lake naval base, weapons base. Maybe it was that. I'm not saying it wasn't, okay? Because they do have experimental aircraft in that area. I do remember back, this was probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago anyway, and there were these very, very clear and concise photos of what they called insect UFOs, okay? And what these were, and people were, they saw that some people took pictures of these things, these insect UFOs, they called them. And people thought, well, what is this? And nobody knew. And they were very clear pictures. They were pictures of flying objects that were a bit larger than an insect, probably closer to the size of a hummingbird. And they would come in, they moved quickly, they made a soft buzzing noise, and then they would just leave. People saw them outside their windows. People saw them in their gardens. People saw them going by. They'd go by, they'd hover over them, and they'd leave just as quick as they came. And people would snap pictures of them. I thought, well, these are just Photoshopped. No, they're not Photoshopped. These are real live pictures. Well, it came to be that these were the predecessors to modern-day drones. And the government was running experimental drones that were about the size of hummingbirds. They had cameras on them. They're just going around checking things out, okay? They're not UFOs anymore. They're flying objects that are now identified. But back then, nobody heard of drones. What do you mean? Little bitty things. How would you fly that? You can't get in and fly it. It's flown with remote control, okay? So that former UFO is now explained. See? And maybe one day some of these other UFOs will be explained. Until then, they are UFOs. And I still remember the story. Before you keep saying, well, Strong, you're just a conspiracy theorist and you're just making this stuff up, and you got to understand that there's things that you don't understand. Yeah, I get all that, but I still love the story, and I don't have the documents in front of me, but I've told this story many times on the air before. But it had to do with a spacecraft that crashed just outside of Dallas, Texas. And the spacecraft came, and this was in the newspaper. It was documented. They said a craft came through the town, hit a tower, knocked down the tower, and the craft it was destroyed and it crashed. Two of the inhabitants, which were beings that did not look like humans but were very small, were inside of this. They were dead, and the town buried them, and they had a religious service for the people who crashed in the aircraft. This was in the local newspaper. And this was somewhere around the 1870s or 1880s, okay? What was that? The only thing that flew back then were balloons and birds. And this was in a newspaper. That to me is very odd. That couldn't have been a government craft. Okay, maybe what I saw in the California desert was a government craft. That thing that crashed in the town just outside of Dallas in the 1880s wasn't a government craft. Nobody had spaceships back then. What was that? I have no idea. Oh, and by the way, neither do you. So before you mock and ridicule people like me who say UFOs are for real, just remember, if I'm wrong, if I'm thinking the wrong thing, if what I'm saying and believing is incorrect, then you need to tell me if I'm wrong, then what's right. If I'm mistaken, set me straight. And you better be sure that you're right when you make that explanation. Or are you just making this stuff up too? Well, that's it. I'm done. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. That's my email address. Send me an email. I do answer all emails. Sometimes it takes a few days because I get busy, but I do answer them. You can find the podcast. That's the best way to get the podcast. You send an email. You send your email address to JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. I put you on the mailing list. Upon publication of the podcast, I send it to your mailbox. You download it at your leisure. Or you download it then and listen to it at your leisure, I should say. You can also pick up the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud. I'm on TuneIn Radio now. That's right, TuneIn Radio. Say James Strong Show. It's there. You can tell Siri or Alexa, play the James Strong Show, and it'll find it and play it for you. I'm everywhere. It's easy to play, easy to find, and tell your friends about the show, too. I appreciate the free publicity, okay? That's it. I'm done. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.